Welcome to the Meat and Potatoes podcast. We're here with Clay Olsen, who is the founder and CEO of Impact Suite, Fight the New Drug, and the creator of Raise. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. First Meat and Potatoes podcast post-summit.
Yeah. It was a good summit.
Thank you. Appreciate you being involved. All right. You guys have your own event coming up. Details on that are October 18th.
Yes.
6 to 8 p.m., Show Barn, Thanksgiving Point, right?
Correct, yes.
Beautiful venue. It's going to be awesome weather, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And
we're actually giving a discount for all the listeners here to put in the promo code SLOPES25 for 25% off.
SLOPES25. Beautiful. Not fun to put on an event, but it looks like you guys are squared away. And we're going to talk about that mostly today, right?
Yeah.
We've had you on a few times, and we've talked about Impact Suite. We've talked about how you view entrepreneurship, how you build your businesses, how you build your communities, all of that. But we're talking about this event, and it kind of encapsulates a lot of what you do, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is really targeting parents. You know, we want to help. I mean, for those of you who don't know what Raise is, and it is fairly new, and so we're just launching. In fact, this event is in some ways kind of the official release publicly of Raise. And Raise, you can go to joinraise.com to learn more. But Raise is, you know, a lot of parents are concerned about the challenges that technology presents for young people today. You know, I grew up in a time in which that explosion of technology was really kind of come to a head as I was like coming into, through high school and into college. Like there was just an unprecedented amount of like access with the ubiquity of smartphones and other things. And I remember thinking like, how cool is this? You know, that we live in this kind of a time. But I also remember realizing just kind of like that, you know, the challenges that this was presenting at that time, and things have only gotten more challenging. So, I've been, for over a decade, I've been just really fascinated and focused on trying to help people navigate some of the challenges of today's digital landscape. And parents, studies have shown that, they're, concerned about their children's access to technology and what they're experiencing, what they're accessing, how much they're accessing it. Most parents are concerned about that. Almost all parents are concerned about the safety of digital safety of their children. Yet, studies have shown that parents only spend about 46 minutes throughout their entire childhood, their child's childhood, talking about digital safety. And so there's this huge canyon between what parents are doing and their concern level. And we want to close that concern behavior gap, because parents aren't doing anything because there isn't a generational script. They can't ask mom or grandma what to do in this situation because those situations didn't exist back then. So we really want to help educate and inform, and we've been working for 2.5 years working with experts and child psychologists and law enforcement to help curate and provide a free, that's a key word, free resource for parents to help empower them, to help give them the information necessary to help, again, empower them to navigate these challenges.
I love it. Yeah, free, F-R-E-E, Price is Right. This would be like a 20, 30, 40-hour podcast, right? Which is why you have to come on and like kind of set the hook a little bit, put the worm on the hook, and then hopefully it sets and people adopt and kind of use your products. But you have to do events where you can congregate more people. So we're just going to hit on a couple of the things that you've learned over that decade. Child psychologists, data, 46 minutes of, so everyone wants to like save the polar bears, and there's all these causes on planet Earth, right? Yeah. And then they just want to. And then that kind of ends. So it sounds like that's what happens even with their own kids, with digital safety and being like getting the online predators and, the kids conscious. Like there's a lot of bad people out there. They only spend a few minutes a year, it sounds like.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if at all. I mean, a lot of parents just don't. When I go around the country speaking to parent groups about some of these challenges, and oftentimes I'll ask, like, how many times did your parents, and I'll ask for a raise of hands, how many of you in the audience did your parents kind of set you aside and talk to you about some of these issues? And, I get maybe 10%. So 90%, no. And so, the times in which we could kind of put our heads in the sand or kind of just assume that nature will take care of itself and they'll figure it out and like they're okay. Those days are way past us. Like we no longer have the luxury to sit idly on the sidelines. We need to engage as parents, and for a lot of parents that requires some educating, like understanding what's really happening, what's really out there, how their kids are accessing that, and so that they can be the authority, they can be the source of truth for their child. And so we want to help. We want to help support them in that process. We address a number of different topics. We address nurturing parent-child relationships, which is kind of foundational. It's not necessarily digitally centric, but it is like something that is like the foundation upon which we can build everything else. We address managing screen time balance, navigating inappropriate content, confronting cyberbullying, and protecting against online predators. Those are key areas that parents are concerned about and struggling with. And in each of those categories, we commissioned and engaged experts in fields around the country to help us navigate that curriculum and content. And again, from the get-go, we thought this has got to be free for parents. This is not something that we intend to make money from. This is not something that we're trying to monetize in any way. We're trying to help as many parents through this process as possible. And it's not just like a trough of videos like you get on a YouTube channel. This is intended to be something that is a companion as they raise their children with age-appropriate milestones and support along the way. So we, as you download Raise, which they can do at the App Store, Raise Parenting, or go to the website and sign up online. You input each one of your children, and you can kind of set goals for those children, track those children, and see the progress over time. So it's not just information; it's also a companion and a support. With again, we want to just be there for them.
Yeah, and a lot goes into this, but how are you able to do all of this and keep it at that beautiful price point?
Well, yeah, it's a great question. So we, my company Impact Suite teamed up with the Maloof Foundation. And for those of you who don't know, the Maloof Foundation, they are an incredible organization focused on addressing and confronting child sexual exploitation. I've been involved with the Maloof Foundation for some time now, and together between the two entities, we co-created Raise. And so from the beginning, this has been kind of more philanthropic endeavor and an effort, and we're committed to maintaining that moving forward. So this is a joint venture between the two groups.
Very cool. So Impact Suite, you guys are for-profit. You make money on your products and services. Maloof on their for-profit side, bedding and furniture and all of that. And then this is a joint effort where you guys donate time, money, resources, and that's why it's free.
Yeah, and we do have groups that have donated to support as well. So there are sponsors, there are individuals and groups and organizations that have helped. For instance, at the summit that we're doing, or this conference that we're doing here on the 18th, Zions Bank has got involved and others, and so we welcome that support for the ongoing maintenance and support of this. But we've been able to maintain that free price point.
Very cool. So not only are you running your company, that requires a lot of time, effort, and resources, and obviously the Maloofs are. You're a good enough person and a good enough collective group of people that you'll also do this pretty big lift on the side. You care a lot. Yeah,
we've bitten off a lot, but it's good, and we've got a lot of great people supporting it and helping out. So it's a large team effort, and but it's been a lot. That's why it's taken us 2.5 years to get it off the ground.
Yeah, good for you guys. Is there a kind of an age? I was born in the early 80s, and the internet, end of junior high school. And we weren't like ruffians, but like we used it for bad stuff right out of the gate. Right?
Technology.
Like,
yeah.
Got a cell phone late in high school. And then, I was gone for quite a bit of time after college, came back, and like the world had changed even quite a bit more with like cell phones, and then soon thereafter, like the smartphones and all of that. So for me, it's pretty like cavemanish when I talk to my kids. It's like, this stuff's not great. Here's the reasons I think so. They're probably some are actually scientific based because I've talked to folks like you a lot over the years, but I can rarely back it up with like details, and there's never any follow up, right? It's just like, you don't get a phone ever, right? And then it's like, you're a mean dad, and they'll figure out a way, right? So that needs to be thought through and figured out by experts like you and your team. But is there an age where it's like generation, like they didn't have to worry about it and then this next group did? Is it like they were born in 1988, 89, 93? Is there like a specific age group that was severely impacted by this?
I mean, I think we as a collective whole have been largely impacted. I mean, adults that grew up in the early, or like were born in the early 80s or late 70s are dealing with these challenges. But it's true that when you get to the younger millennial generation and, of course, Gen Z, they entered the world in a completely different way than any of us, and you know, their exposure and access to information, and you know, there's a lot of positives that came along with that access and gamifying and kind of strengthening learning mechanisms and processes through that technology has been wildly valuable. However, that generation is dealing with these challenges to a level and scale that just no generation in the history of the world has ever seen. And the dark underbelly to that is kind of coming to fruition in the data. We're starting to see the tidal wave of harms finally start to reach our shores. Yeah. And we're recognizing just how large of an impact it's having on mental health, how large of an impact it's having on just our ability to kind of cope with the challenges that we face on a day-to-day basis. And so although we are not, and I hope this goes without saying, we're not anti-technology. Yeah. You know, technology is so empowering and valuable and beneficial, and a lot of our businesses rely upon it to be able to deliver the services that we offer. But when it comes to adolescence and technology, it is something that we have to navigate very deliberately. Yeah. We have to understand, you know, what is healthy and what is unhealthy, and how to present that in an effective way that they can get on board with. That it's not going to be just a battle and an argument. A lot of people think that, like, well, if I don't give them a phone at the age of 10, then they're going to be the weird ones in the school, and they're going to hate me, and I'm going to be a bad dad or mom. And the reality is that there are ways to really help navigate that conversation with the child and help establish a process to where, you know, different permissions are granted at different stages of maturity development, and we help that process. We help you understand that. We help you make the decisions that are right for your child, which are going to be different from the next family across the street. Yeah. But if we can be more deliberate as parents and more informed, we're not going to find ourselves in that trap that so many parents are in, where they just kind of say, well, you know, like, I needed to get a hold of him for soccer practice, so I just gave him, you know, a full-fledged unlocked iPhone. It's like, yeah. You know, like, there are better ways to approach that at that stage of life. There are needs, and there are ways to meet those needs without unlocking everything on the internet for them at that time. Yeah,
it makes perfect sense. And you know, like, even if you've got a pretty squared away family, you're pretty squared away, it takes a lot of time and effort, right? Like, you've got the school runs, you've got the soccer practice. Eventually you get tired and you're like, I got to talk about this with the kids and come up with a plan. And then you don't, to the 46-minute point. But you guys have done that, right? You've made it easier for parents. And it sounds like you've made it very flexible and adaptable, because each situation is different.
Yeah, it's modular, it's bite-sized, it's not meant to be kind of this blitz of, like, I need to, you know, go through this 4-hour curriculum in the next week. Like, it's something that follows you along the journey and helps you, and it really adapts to what your interests and needs are for the child and for your different children. So I think parents need to not get overwhelmed with the process. We must engage. This is the future of our children. This is something that they're dealing with that has long-term effects. We must engage, but we need to do it in a way that we're informed, and we can do that in a positive way to help their children develop healthy relationships with technology. Wouldn't that be great?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. All right, let's talk about the event on the 18th, 6 to 8 p.m. at the Show Barn, Thanksgiving Point. And the discount code for listeners again is Slopes25.
Yeah.
Got it. And we'll put the link in the description there. But we've got parent-child relationships, cyberbullying, screen time balance, online predators,
inappropriate
content.
Yeah, so we've actually found experts around the country that are specialized in these areas. People like Ralphie Jacobs and people like Samir Hinduja, which is one of the leading experts on cyberbullying in the nation. People like Andre Davis from Screen Time Balance, Better Screen Time, and Smith Alley, who many of the listeners might know. He's a local here in Utah. But people from around the country that are experts in their fields coming together to speak on these subjects here in Lehigh on the 18th. And we just encourage, if you're a parent, if you're a grandparent, if you are a soon-to-be parent, this is going to be extremely helpful. It's the most relevant parenting event of the year. Get here, be a part of it. And if you can't make it because you're out of state or whatever, we are offering kind of a full video recording of the event that's also available on joinraise.com.
Very cool. And so I like the 2-hour window.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be enough to get educated and pique interest. But then the cool thing is you guys have everything lined up after the fact to keep it going. A
free resource to say, hey, you've learned a lot here today, but here's something to kind of like go home with and start the process with your children.
Yeah. Is this ever frustrating? Like you've put all this time and effort into understanding screen time, cyberbullying, all of that. You've got kids, correct?
I do.
How often do people be like, that's cool, Clay. What do you do? And that's all they're just going to follow your example.
Oh, what do I do in my home?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, well, great. Whatever you do, I'm going to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good and healthy for us to look at examples that we find are effective, but it is also true that not everything, like what works for one family might not work for another. I was on a plane with a gentleman not long ago. I was coming back from a conference, and I was asking him about his family, and he has a large family, 8 girls.
Oh boy!
And he was talking about how they don't they don't have any screens in the home, period, no TV and anything. And once they graduate and they are 18, that's when they get their first phone. And I'm like, okay. I mean, and he talked about how valuable and beneficial that was for the family. Not everyone's going to be able to go to that extreme. I'm sure that there has been value, and that was a very intentional and challenging thing that they did, and it worked for them. And it's working for them, seemingly from what I could tell.
Yeah.
That's not going to work for everybody, and so we got to find what is going to work for different groups. And the app isn't prescriptive in that regard. It's not kind of saying, okay, by the age of 8, this is what's got to happen. By the age of 10, there are some kind of milestones that we address and saying, hey, now they're entering into middle school. You might want to consider these conversations and these types of things, and consider. And here's a worksheet that you can use to be able to help navigate this conversation. We do offer that, but it's still something that's very adaptable to what's working for you. But I would encourage parents to talk to one another. I was invited over from when I moved into the neighborhood that I am now, I was invited over from just a local family there, and they brought me in. They said, hey, can we recruit you to our little club of parents that aren't going to give our kids smartphones until they're 16. And I was like, oh, how interesting. Like, they're trying to band together to say, like, come on, we can't, we're sick of being the parents that are looked at as like, the parents that aren't, mean to their kids and don't give their kids what they want when everyone else is giving them what they want. So we want to band together. And I thought, well, interesting concept, because if we can kind of bring that up, largely why we as a society are mismanaging the technology with our youth is because we're just unaware. Yeah. And so we can increase the awareness level among parents at large, which requires A, access to good information, and B, communication and conversation with our neighbors. And as we share and discuss, we're going to raise the collective consciousness of this issue, and we're going to start to behave a little differently as parents. We're going to start to manage a little differently the technology that is accessible to our children. And that is going to do immense benefit to the mental health and the stability of the next generation.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting where people will go, right? Like you're going to have, whether it's politics or sports or anything, you'll have both extremes, like no screen time. Have fun when you're 18, you can buy your first phone.
Yeah.
To here's whatever you want.
Yeah.
TV, iPad, and
Yeah.
a phone.
A subscription to HBO, whatever. Just here it is.
And like the middle ground is like where parents are probably going to find the most use out of all of this. The Raise app, the conference. I assume you guys will probably start doing more programming.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will. Absolutely. This is going to be more than just an app. It's going to be kind of a community of individuals working toward this knowledge and awareness.
Yeah. And it probably will ebb and flow too. Like
Mm-hmm.
to your point, like there might be times where like the kid's just so busy with sports or whatever, and they don't really care about the screen time. And then maybe over Christmas break, it's like, geez, get off the screen or whatever. I love that you guys have thought through this so much. And what does the data play into how you guys build this, build the conference, build the products?
What do you mean?
As far as like it's not anecdotal, like, you're talking to parents and stuff, but like the data that shows this is good, this is bad.
Yeah.
How does that incorporate into what you guys are building?
Oh, we spent an immense amount of time working with university professors and researchers and psychologists, like I mentioned, and law enforcement detectives, working through the literature, working through like their life experiences and their expertise to kind of funnel in best practices for addressing these issues. So it's extremely based upon both science and best practices in these categories. It's not just kind of like, what I thought might be helpful.
Yeah.
Well, we want to be as helpful as we can, but we want to do that in a way that's been kind of proven.
Yeah. Because when we were growing up, it was dare to say no.
Yeah.
And then don't get in vans with strangers, right? There might have been something like don't eat apples on Halloween, right? There's only a few things, right? It was easy.
Unmarked candy.
Yeah. But now there's like so much more, right? And to your point, the data for the parents that are just like skeptical, right? The data would probably be really beneficial because this is a fairly new industry, right? Like cyberbullying.
Yeah.
Like it's probably in the second inning. Really,
oh, yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. I mean, we took bullying, which was already a problem, and then you exponentially put fuel on that fire through a cyber experience because it can be spread so much more quickly.
Yeah.
And it can do so much more psychological damage to those youth. It doesn't stay on the playground. It's not just concealed to that environment. It's now open to the public, and it stays out there, and that weighs heavily. So rules have changed, things have expanded. We've got to kind of step up as parents to address this. It's not an option.
Yeah, and in 5 years when you guys are doing this conference again, there's probably going to be 2 or 3 new apps and possibly some new phone classes. Like it's going to be constant.
Yep.
White hat, black hat. And whoever's got kind of jobs in this industry, they're going to have to be on their toes.
Right.
Very cool. All right. So after the event, we'd love to help promote the next one.
Yeah.
Count Silicon Slopes in. We've loved working with the Maloof Foundation, loved working with you over the years. And I think, you've mentioned you guys are not anti-technology, obviously.
Clearly,
right?
yeah.
But there's a good way to navigate this world that we live in. And I think you guys are great. And kudos to you and your team for like stepping up and doing something. You didn't have to, but you did. So kudos to you and your team on that one.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. So October 18th, 6 to 8 p.m., Show Barn Thanksgiving Point. You can get tickets at
Joinraise.com.
Joinraise.com. All right. Thank you, Clay.
Thank you.